Welcome to this latest episode of the Duncan Cartlidge Online podcast, the online resource for construction professionals. Duncan Cartlidge Online offers more than 9 hours of video presentations that are available 24/7 for just £7 a month. Remember to subscribe through your usual podcast provider so you don't miss out on any updates, and be sure you visit our YouTube channel for additional content. It's great to have you with us again for another episode. And, as always, I'm joined by Barney, my red Labrador, who helps to keep an eye on things and occasionally, very occasionally, offers some invaluable advice. Both Barney and I would be delighted if you could take a moment to write a review. Your feedback means a lot to us. If this is the first time listening to Duncan Cartlidge Online podcast, welcome. Please remember to subscribe and catch up on our previous episodes. To existing subscribers, thank you very much for your continued support. Please help us by spreading the word and writing a review. In this episode that is bulging as much as Santa's sack, we'll be taking a look at sustainability slowdown, preparing the final account, and the future of quantity surveying. So first, a look at sustainability slowdown. November saw the publication of the RICS's annual sustainability report, which, as the name suggests, tests the enthusiasm of the construction industry worldwide to adopt greener working practices. And it's not good news if you are an environmentalist, or even if you're not for that matter. In last year's report, 2024, the RICS detected a slowdown of interest. However, this year it has been turned into a decline in interest. We are constantly being reminded that construction is responsible for almost 40% of global carbon emissions, as well as consuming 40% of global raw materials, which incidentally is slightly higher than previous years. Globally, the biggest drop in interest has been in the US, where the current political policy and focus has led to a decline in demand for green buildings. Turning to the UK, what are the principal barriers to the widespread adoption of green construction? According to the RICS, top of the list is high initial cost, combined with uncertainty on the return on investment, while other contributory factors are lack of client awareness and consumer demand. I don't want to get into politics, but it's perceived to be a bit Ed Miliband-esque. The clear lack of measurement protocols is also concerning. The BCIS is trying hard to convince quantity surveyors and clients that embodied carbon should be calculated for each project as part of the measurement process. But it's a hard sell. For without doubt, quantity surveyors are ideally suited to carry out carbon accounting. The question is, are the construction industry, developers and clients prepared to engage and, more importantly, pay for carbon emission measurement? Wild West is a term often used to describe the market of carbon accounting currently. It is thought that 6 different providers would produce 6 different solutions. Now, if you're interested in learning more about carbon measurement, much of the information around measuring protocols, reporting frameworks and carbon data is open access. So please take a look. In a previous podcast, I discussed the feasibility of adopting a circular model for construction, but the availability of recycled materials is so limited that its large-scale adoption is unrealistic, unless somebody could convince me otherwise. Recycling is expensive and technologies to aid it take a long time to develop. Another potential blow to establishing a circular model is the UK government's proposal to merge the higher and lower landfill tax rates by 2030. The Home Builders Federation has estimated that the proposal would add £15,000 to the cost of every home, and according to the Times, £1 billion to the cost of the third runway at Heathrow. Although it would appear that this idea has now been dropped, it has been predicted that the bottom rate, currently £4.05 a tonne, could more than double next year as it is to be index linked. The undeniable fact is that construction is wedded to bottom line capital costs, and some kind of move from government to mandate carbon measurement is needed to progress the agenda. History shows that the UK construction over the past years has proved incapable of change without a carrot and/or big stick. Building Magazine and Gleeds organised a round-table forum of sustainability luminaries recently on why greening construction is so important. Much of the rhetoric was familiar, stuff like we mustn't just consider initial costs but lifetime costs. And for my mind, there was no clear carrot or stick to encourage construction to take up the green challenge. And, while on the topic of slowdowns, a couple of episodes ago I sounded a word of caution over the latest silver bullet threatening to solve the problems of the construction industry. Yes, you've guessed it, AI. Have you ever thought what AI is? The OECD defines AI as a machine-based system that uses inputs to generate outputs, like predictions, content, or decisions that can affect physical or virtual environments. AI systems differ in autonomy and adaptability after deployment. Interesting term that, isn't it? Deployment. This definition makes it quite clear that a system is only as good as the information at its disposal, and any output are not tablets of stone, but should be treated as an aid towards decision making. Not too surprising then that there has been a 53-fold increase in generative AI incidents and hazards. I don't know whether you heard about the AI-generated Christmas mural that had to be taken down in Kingston, southwest London last week, due to unsettling imagery, including snowmen with human eyes and teeth, and dogs resembling chickens. Despite this, investment in generative AI soared across all sectors, jumping from $1.3 billion in 2022 to a staggering $17.8 billion in 2023. Last week, the CEO of Alphabet, Google's parent company, remarked that there was some irrational enthusiasm fueling the current boom, and noted that, should the AI bubble burst, it could impact every company. And he's not the only one sounding a note of caution, although others are more bullish, including consultants Ryder Levitt Bucknell and Gleeds, who have set up their own data academies to prepare employers for the brave new world. Certainly, the RLB digital promotional video looks very impressive. Time will tell who's right. Perhaps I should rebrand. Duncan Cartlidge Digital. No, perhaps not. And now, quickly moving on to preparing the final account. The final account just says what it does on the tin. JCT 24, clause 4.2526, deals with the preparation of the final account or final adjustment. For public sector projects, the final account acts as the final part of the audit trail, allowing all financial transactions relating to the contract to be clearly traced, with the contract bills of quantities being the starting point. For a private client, it may not always be necessary to produce a fully detailed final account, as long as the client is confident that the final project has delivered value for money and fair accounting procedures have been followed. The final account stage of a contract is the process during which the quantity surveyor determines the final cost of the project based on the following documents: the form of contract, the original price bill of quantities, variations, drawings, and agreed contractors' claims. Of course, the client should be kept up to date with the projected final account as work progresses. It's all too easy for the client's QS to leave the final account until the job is finished, particularly where pre-contract work is a priority. But all the advice is that the final account should be prepared during the contract period, as some of the detail required will have been used during the preparation of variations and interim certificates. In any event, it's better to measure and price variations and prepare the final account during the currency of the contract, while the facts are still fresh in people's minds and the staff involved are still around. On several occasions, I have been appointed by private and public sector bodies to prepare final accounts for projects which had finished years before. As there is little or no fee income due on the projects, there is resentment in having to pay somebody to have the I's dotted and the T's crossed. After the architect or contract administrator has issued the certificate of practical completion, the contractor must supply, within 3 months, the quantity surveyor with all the necessary documentation in order that the final account adjustment can be prepared. The quantity surveyor then has an additional 3 months to prepare the final account, although there is no stipulated penalty in the contract if these deadlines are not met, which is just as well really, because very few are. Even though the final account is not settled, money should not be withheld for the contractor, and the value of the penultimate certificate, that's the one before the final account, should try to be within a few pounds of the probable final account figure, so as not to impact on cash flow. The account should be prepared as a series of individual accounts, dealing with adjustments to variations, provisional sums, provisional items, and, if applicable, prime cost sums. Each item adjusted in the account should be referenced to the architect or contract administrator's instruction and back to the bill of quantities, particularly if the account is going to be audited. Without an instruction, items cannot be adjusted or included in the final account. Incidentally, as well as voiceover tutorial, a final account pro forma is included under the Resources tab for subscribing members of Duncan Cartlidge Online. The variation account will probably be the largest in terms of documentation in the final account. The number and nature of change orders or variations issued during the contract period will vary considerably according to the type of contract. For example, contracts with little or no pre-contract planning or documentation or refurbishment contracts can expect to generate substantial numbers of variations, whereas comparatively simple and uncomplicated projects based on fully detailed documentation may generate very few. It's important that all instructions are filed either electronically or physically, even though some may have no financial effect. When the parties agree the final account figure, the statement of final account is drawn up and signed in full and final settlement, and that no further claims can be made on the contract, subject to adjustments required following audit and liquidated ascertained damages. And now turning to something close to my heart, the future of quantity surveying. 25 years ago, Building Magazine wrote an article, "Will we soon be drying a tear over the grave marked RIP quantity surveying, 1792 to 2000. Subsequently, I have vigorously defended my profession, but recently I have begun to have second thoughts. Perhaps the end is nigh. As I have said many times, I'm no Luddite. If in doubt, read New Aspects of Quantity Surveying, 5th edition. But I was saddened this week to learn that one of the largest QS degree courses in the UK has cut the amount of time devoted to taking off quantities from 24 weeks to 12 weeks in years 1 and 2, and will be delivered digitally. Sounds a bit like running before you can walk to me. Apparently, the students are quite happy about this development, probably because measurement has always been a problem for many students. But what does this say about the future of the profession? And is industry happy with it? Set against this, one of the most popular textbooks for taking off quantities, Willis's Elements of Quantity Surveying, now in its 14th edition, for which I have great respect, still includes all its taking off examples in dimension paper format, stating that it is the best form for learners. So, who's right? It's not news to me to come across quantity surveying degrees without measurement. A few years ago, when I was delivering NRM2 CPD events, it was not uncommon for recent graduates in the audience to admit to having no experience of taking off. You may ask, as I did, what on earth are you doing here? One of the reasons for the decline in teaching measurement is that people who can deliver taking off lectures, that's people like me, are like hen's teeth. Increasingly, university lecturers are appointed based upon their research profile, which, not unsurprisingly, does not include measurement. It seems a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy. In a few years' time, there will be no one left to teach taking off quantities, and it will be removed from the curriculum or taught by people who have a generic built environment background. To quote and paraphrase Mr. Spock of Star Trek fame, it's quantity surveying, Jim, but not as we know it. Academia and industry have, in my experience, never seen eye to eye. Is it education or training? On one hand, academia would like to think that they are producing scholars, where industry would like to have a ready supply of oven-ready, self-basting graduates. And of course, we are still awaiting for the RICS to finalise its thoughts on future educational pathways. Well, folks, that's all for this episode. I hope you find it both interesting and informative. Thank you for listening right to the end. Barney and I think your stamina is worth a gold medal. This has been a podcast from Duncan Cartlidge Online. We'd really appreciate it if you could help us out by spreading the word, subscribing, and if you've the time, writing a review. Until next time, take care.